I'm with ESPN Cricinfo writer Vitushan Ehantharajah as we prepare for the fourth game of the series. Vish, we've had Ali Martin on the podcast, who I saw as the tour leader, Nick Holt, who is the athlete of the press pack. It pains me to say it, but you're just the coolest man, aren't you, travelling around?
I think I might be the mascot, to be fair. The little cuddly toy that they take for good luck.
What are your thoughts on Ranchi? We've made our way here from Rajkot. We're in Dhoni country, aren't we?
Yeah. We are currently in the Dhoni Pavilion, aren't we? I suppose understandably so. He did a fair bit in his career, didn't he?
It's a massive stand that we're in. I think it's 4 tiers up. The ground, huge bowl, 40,000 seater. England are training the afternoon before the game. We're just looking out at Shoaib Bashir and Tom Hartley having a bowl with the assistant coach Jeetan Patel. It has been raining a little bit, actually. The covers have been pulled onto the square and now pulled off. One thing I've sort of taken in from being in Ranchi, Vish, is a city that kind of feels like it's fit to burst, not least because certain journalists have been getting thrown out of their hotel.
Yes, certain journalists have. Yeah, I wonder what those certain journalists would have done to deserve such treatment. Because I got my room.
You were fine?
Yeah, I was fine. A couple of my colleagues were fine. I don't know. Do you know anyone who got kicked out?
I don't know, but he might be wondering where he's sleeping tonight. Away from the intrigue about my sleeping arrangements, the pitch, I think, has been the thing that has caused most debate. Yesterday, Ollie Pope and Ben Stokes, they both called it interesting. England were quite concerned about the cracks running down one side of it, so outside the right-handers off stump if you're batting at one end, the left-handers off stump at the other end. It kind of feels like today those fears have eased slightly, but not too much.
No, I think, before they came on this tour, it was clearly a point of discussion, just purely basing that on some of the pronouncements before they arrived in India, but it really felt like that a lot of the prep had been geared towards basically playing on a pitch exactly like this one. All the prep in Abu Dhabi was about working on big spinning pitches and things like that, and crucially not complaining about them. So when Ollie Pope and Ben Stokes, vice captain and captain, we should say, came out and described them as interesting, that was a very politically savvy move, especially given that in the lead up to the series, Sunil Gavaskar said that we were the moaniest press back, weren't we? And the less said about you, the better. But I think also what's been interesting here is I think there was a suspicion that things might play this way, given that Jasprit Bumrah was rested. Now, there was talk that he'd be rested for that third test in Rajkot. That didn't play out. But he has been rested here. And I suppose, naturally, India, as is their right as the home board, thought, why don't we just turn it a bit more towards our spinners and our biggest strengths. So I'm glad in the team they've picked, which I presume we'll go on to discuss, because it shows that they haven't overreacted here, because I think yesterday they were in danger of that.
Yeah, a little bit earlier on when the England team arrived, Ben Stokes, the captain, Brendan McCullum, the coach, they brought out the entire brains trust to look at the surface in Ranchi. The assistant coaches Jeetan Patel and Paul Collingwood were out there, as was the selector Luke Wright. The team analyst was there as well. Stokes and McCullum, they made their decision on the 11 that they wanted to pick. Then he came over and spoke to me to tell us about that 11 to take on India in the fourth test.
Ollie Robinson comes in for Mark Wood and Shoaib Bashir's in for Rayan Ahmed.
How have you come to that decision?
I think a lot with Woody's workload that he put in last week. Obviously his second test match, but players like Woody, you want to be operating when they're completely 100% fresh to throw everything that he has at the opposition, and obviously that is running and bowling fast. A Goliath effort last week from him. So I think this break is good for him. And looking at the wicket, I think it's going to offer some assistance for the spin, but I think the skill set which Bash has is obviously his release point and how much bounce that he can get. And we looked at that wicket and we thought that Bash's skill set we think are going to give us a better chance than obviously what Ray's got. But that's obviously not any disrespect to what Ray has. It's just how we go about our 11. We pick our team based on what we think is going to give us the best chance of winning a test match.
Does that 11 include Ben Stokes, the bowler?
Look, I think yesterday was a good day. I pulled up really well, so again it's another step forward for me in terms of the ball. But again, as keen as I am to get there, I do have to be very sensible about it.
So not saying yes, not saying no?
Yeah, you hit it on the head.
you guys have had a very long look at that pitch. Probably the longest I think I've seen you take a look at a pitch on this tour. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I think personally don't like to look for too much detail, if that makes sense. You know, you want to have some kind of indication as to what you think it's going to play like, because then that's how you pick your 11. And we think, you know, that there is going to be the assistance there for the spinners, but also with the seam, just because of the sort of dryness and the cracks within the wicket. So, you know, obviously, I think the way in which Jimmy and Robbo operate with just zoning in on an area consistently, Robbo's release point and everything like that, you know, I think we're giving ourselves a good chance that if it is spinning, that we do allow ourselves to also, you know, take some wickets with the quick bowlers if we do feel like there's a bit of invariable bounce.
You've opted to omit Rehan Ahmed. That's the first time in his short Test career that he has been left out of a side. Just talk us through that decision. I know it's normally Brendan that gives the news, so you might not know yet how he's taken it, but just talk us through the reasoning of leaving Rehan out.
Yeah, just because of, you know, the different skill sets that Rehan and Shoaib have. You know, I think Shoaib's an incredibly accurate bowler. He's very, very tall, and we feel that not only with the amount of revolutions that he puts on the ball, the amount of bounce that he's going to get, you know, might do us a bit more of a favour this week than the skill set that Rehan has.
Now, away from cricket, Ben, every time I see you guys, someone's got a pack of cards in their hand. What game are you playing that seems to be occupying the lads so much?
Yeah, we started off, it was nomination, and then slowly started introducing a game that me and Woody used to play in the Durham bus when we were younger, called 500. Now, I say everyone knows how to play. There's still a few people who are a bit unsure of what to do and when to do it, but yeah, it's we've got 500 going, so it's it's a good way to kill time, and everyone likes it.
Who's the best player?
Well, I mean, don't want to give away too much, but I will say me and Zach Crawley are very hard to beat.
Ben, last week obviously didn't go the way you wanted it to. You will have been aware that you guys took some criticism. Do you take any of that in?
No.
And how do you manage not to take it in? How do you manage to keep it out of the dressing room? Is that a hard thing to do?
No, I think it's down to, obviously, I understand that there was going to be that. I've been around long enough to know that, but that's where the messaging for myself and Brendan are very, very important. You know, when you have games like that. I said it yesterday. Get plaudits when you do well and cop a bit when you don't, and that's part of parcel of sport.
The decider in Darmshire's got a nice ring to it, hasn't it?
Yeah, if it's not too cold.
That was Ben Stokes talking to me a little bit earlier on. Vish, I was so convinced that England were going to play three spinners on this pitch that I had to send 3 different teams back to the office earlier on after England had announced it. I couldn't work out in my head, I couldn't understand that James Anderson actually kept his place from the third test, that Bashir had come in for Rehan Ahmed and Ollie Robinson for Mark Wood was the only change in the seam attack. What was your reaction when you saw that 11 when it landed?
I had 3 on the go as well, yeah. But what I didn't have was Rehan Ahmed missing out, so that was a quick change when the team came through, yeah. I think the Anderson thing was, I suppose we knew yesterday that Mark Wood would be sitting out and Ollie Robinson would be coming in. And given the chat about the pitch, like you, I assumed that there'd be 3 spin and Joe Root. And actually, I suppose what they've done here is they've gone for essentially an attack that gives them a consistent...
It's balanced, isn't it? I would say.
Well, it's balanced, but it's also, skewed toward a couple of things. One, release points. We've heard a lot about that. It was a reason that Shoaib Bashir and Tom Hartley were picked, despite their lack of first-class experience, because they were tall bowlers who turned the ball both ways, different ways. And also it was used as a reason for selecting Ollie Robinson. Now, even in Australia, that was his, that was deemed one of his strengths, that he has a high release point. And with James Anderson, you know what you're getting consistency. And on a pitch where they think is going to misbehave, kind of ideally want to hammer on exactly the same spot, time after time after time. And this is the most effective attack at doing that. Now, Stokes has spoken about Rehan Ahmed like it's his third child, Rehan's his third child on this tour. He clearly has a lot of admiration for his qualities as a player and also his enthusiasm as a 19-year-old. And I thought it said a lot that he thought, you know what, now's the time to pull you out. He has been a little bit of a luxury player, and we all love those. But I think that last innings in the previous test when Jaiswal went after him and Gill went after him, that probably made their mind up that actually they need a little bit more reliability. Bear in mind that all the chat with this team has been about taking wickets, taking opportunities and stuff like that. That now plays into consistency on the surface they're getting here in terms of a consistent line and length as well.
I think, lingering on that point of release points, I mean, this England attack is going to be land of the giants, and I do hope.
I don't want to be standing next to any of them. Yeah.
Well, I do hope that someone comes up with tallest attacks to play Test cricket, because this England bowling attack might be in there with Robinson, Bashir, and Hartley, who are all 6'4", 6'5".
There's a lot of people with a ducket to stand next to in the anthems,
absolutely. The thing that England or any team tries to sort of lean into is the history of a ground. There's only been 2 Test matches here before, so that is not a very big sample size to go after, and that is why England are just desperately trying to get a read on the conditions. Brendan McCullum was out there shaking hands with the curator. Obviously, he's a man who spent a lot of time in this country travelling around with the IPL. Stokes always says to us, look, I've played in India a lot, I feel like I know what is required, even though he said, I've never seen anything like that pitch. One theory going around before England named their team was that if they thought that runs really going to be at premium, that Dan Lawrence might come into the side for one of the fast bowlers to lengthen the batting lineup, and he'd bowl a little bit of his part-time off-spin as well. I'm glad that England haven't gone that way, because that would have, to me, just reeked of panic a little bit.
Yeah, you mentioned Ali Martin before. I think Ali tweeted when the squad was announced that this is a reaction, but it's not an overreaction, and that's exactly right, isn't it? I think Lawrence, when that came through yesterday that he was being considered, I got quite excited because I'm a fan of Dan Lawrence, and also it's quite an exciting pick. What you're waiting for with this team is you're waiting for something outrageous. And bear in mind, we started the series with just one seamer, 3 inexperienced spinners. You thought, maybe we're already conditioned to that craziness, but we thought this would be an extra bit. And you're right, it's smart they haven't done that. And I suppose it feeds back into the need to be quite relentless on this pitch, probably more so than on previous ones. They often talk about whether it's a pitch that's doing a lot off the seam, or it's spinning, or rather, for the seamers and for the spinners. Actually, that's when you need to be your most consistent. You can't get away with trying to bowl magic balls all the time. You just need the ball to do enough to beat the outside edge, or take the edge, or go into the pads and throw a batter. So they've done this really well, actually, considering this is a must-win game, considering that I suppose in any other situation you'd understand if Stokes and McCullum thought, right, we're all in here, this is do or die, don't want to play a dead rubber, can't stand dead rubbers, let's go all in. And they've actually made a really smart and really considered choice.
The debate around the balance of the team as well was complicated by Ben Stokes himself, who's been teasing us as to whether or not he's going to bowl. So we've gradually seen him build his bowling up throughout the tour. I think it was before the second test in Vizag where he said to us, look, don't get too excited, but tomorrow in training you're going to see me bowl for the first time since the knee operation. Don't forget, I'm not bowling on this tour. I've said all along I'm not going to bowl on this tour. And then it has built up and built up and built up to the point from before the third test in Rajkot, he said, no, I'm not bowling. I've made a pinky promise to the physio. To the last day of the test match in Rajkot, when he was speaking after England lost, he said, well, no, now I'm not saying no and I'm not saying yes. We saw him bowl in the nets for half an hour yesterday, pretty much at full intensity at Johnny Bairstow. He was looking in good shape. Ollie Pope, the vice-captain, said there's every chance that he's going to have a bowl. Stokes himself is still saying, look, I've pulled up while I feel okay, but he's still not committed to it in this test match. And I suppose one of the issues is it doesn't matter, of course it does matter that his knee feels okay, but there's lots of other bits of the body that go into bowling fast, especially when you haven't done it since July. Yeah, definitely. There's a stat that always comes up that it's 7 times your body weight going through your front foot when you run in and bowl. I suppose actually, do you remember at the start of this tour when Stokes first sat down with us and we couldn't stop talking about how lean he was? And he said it was something that he decided to do before he had the operation because he'd done the research into it and figured out that you rehab quicker if you're putting less weight on your knee, which I suppose makes sense.
It does make a lot of sense, yeah. And I suppose we're seeing the proof of it now in how he's progressed with his bowling. And I think what's important as well is that he has tempered everything by what he's been able to do. It's not so much that he had a time frame in mind that after a month I'll be doing this, after 6 weeks I'll be doing that. he's bowled, and then he's come and told us, he's told us, oh, it's been this, it's been that. And I suppose the thing that was interesting today when he was asked about, do you think you can go into this test as a bowler? He was very non-committal on that. And I suppose he doesn't have to tell us that he's going to bowl in this test. He can decide on day 2 that, you know what, I quite fancy this. Or the ball's reversing and it's, it says it's at the 75 over mark, and I would quite like Robinson and Anderson to take that second new ball, so I will do the donkey work here.
And also, even if he was fit, if he was a fully fit Ben Stokes, there might be an innings when he didn't bowl anyway.
Well, exactly.
Completely as a captain reacting to the conditions, like you're suggesting there. There might be a perfect time for him to think, right, I need my seamers later. Now is the time for me to have a bowl. And just a final point. There's some batters who need a score, isn't there? Johnny Bairstow, Joe Root, who've kind of become the centre of the Root in particular, the personification of the debate around England's style of play.
Yeah, it's interesting. The more and more you see this team out off the field, whether they're interacting at the hotel or walking around elsewhere, there is a generational divide, isn't there? And it's the younger generation who are really thriving. And I'm thinking specifically of Zach Crawley and Ben Duckett. Ben Duckett's obviously a bit older, but in terms of someone who's come new into this setup, Ollie Pope got that big score in the first innings as well, and you've got players like Rehan Ahmed and Tom Hartley who are thriving. And it's those, the certainly one banker in Joe Root and another under McCullum and Stokes in Bairstow who really seem to be fighting for a score. I suppose it's, you'd have more. Obviously, you'd have faith with both, but I suppose it's the manner in which they've got out that is causing some alarm. It's almost the two different problems there. It's Joe Root playing the reverse ram scoop, which I don't mind, but obviously
some people do.
Yeah, which is fine. He's almost the idea is that he's trying to almost cosplay as a basballer and he's being too aggressive. And conversely, the other side, McCullum was quite interesting earlier this week when he talks about he thought Bairstow was actually playing a bit within himself. And that he was getting out to to balls, stuck on the crease, and he should go out there and really impose himself. So it's an interesting quandary with those two. You kind of think, as McCullum said, that Root would work it out. Bairstow is the interesting one, in part because if he plays the whole series, the 5th test will be his 100th cap. And you feel like a lot of that relies on this to a point. But then, if England come out of this test and that game's still live, you imagine Bairstow plays the whole thing.
Yeah. I thought Bairstow was in more danger of not getting to his 100th cap next week if Lawrence played here. That was the way that Lawrence could have overtaken him. I'm now convinced he will get to that 100th test, but England are sort of kicking the can down the road of a decision that they seem to have had now for, best part of a year, because Harry Brook is waiting in the wings and Ben Foakes has clearly done plenty behind the stumps to force his case forward of being England's first choice gloveman for a while to come. So India hold all the cards at the moment with a 2-1 lead in the series and have even been bold enough to rest paceman Jasprit Bumrah for this test. I've been speaking to Dinesh Karthik, a man with 180 caps across all formats for India, on how the home side are looking ahead of the game here in Ranchi and also reflecting on that dramatic last game in Rajkot.
It was quite surprising considering what sort of a fight England have put up so far. But they folded rather meekly in that 4th innings there. And it was always going to be hard work, understandable. It was never going to be easy to chase down a big total there. But the way they folded and the manner in which they folded was quite surprising, to say the least.
And India have turned it around, Dinesh, from being 1-0 down. And when you were wearing your England shirt after the first test, India are now 2-1 up. And they've gone from a point where it felt like they had all the questions to answer to where they look strong in pretty much every department.
True. It's always the case, isn't it? When you win a game, your team looks a lot better than what it can be. And when you lose a game, it's the opposite. Your team looks rather, less strong than what it can be. So I think it's important when we analyze the whole game, look at the whole game. We shouldn't get too carried away by what the result is telling us. Then look at how the teams have played so far. I think India have been the cleverer team. They've understood moments, played a brand of cricket which they always know that suited them, and they played comfortably in their skin. But a couple of the young talents that have been thrown in recently have just come good and batted really well. When it comes to the bowling, it's been the tried and tested names, the Jadejas, the Ashwins, the Kuldeeps and the Bumrah. So Siraj bowled a really good spell and he's been around for some time as well. So India as of now looks strong. But most importantly, I think there is a sense of confidence because a couple of the young batters have shown that they can really put the pressure back on the English spinners. That is one. And I have a feeling Rohit Sharma feels he knows how to handle such attacking batsmen like what England are playing right now. So he kind of is understood in a couple of games, okay, this is what I need to do, which is a good sign for India.
Obviously, the big news coming over the last couple of days is that Jasprit Bumrah is going to be rested for this fourth test. Now, we always knew he was going to get a rest at some point. We thought it might have been in the third test, but he played then. Now he's getting his rest in Ranchi. Is that a good move from your point of view?
More than a good move or a bad move, I think it is an important move for Jasprit Bumrah, considering the amount of cricket that he has. From today till about, at least till end of June, he's going to play a lot of matches. So it's important to maintain his workload. In the 2022 T20 World Cup, he missed it because of the back injury. We all know the impact that he can have. When he came back in the ODI World Cup, we saw how good he can be. So he is not a player you want to miss. I think the Indian bowling revolves around him. He bowls the toughest phases. He gets the best of batters out. So the captain needs him more than anything. So now that... I think there was a toss-up between which test he could probably take a break, the third or the fourth. There were murmurs that he could take a break in one of them, and they chose the fourth test to give him a break. So, because he'll have an 8-day break, then a 4-day test match, which just happened. And then again, he's going to have an 8-day break, which is good for his body. I think it's important that you take care of your crown jewel as a bowler, and that's what they're trying to do here.
Who's going to take his place? Who can take his place?
Akashdeep. I'm pretty confident that Akashdeep will take his place. He did really well against the England Lions. Speaking to a few of the English Lion batters, they were saying that he looked the best bowler that was around the India A team, which says a lot because there are some good bowlers, Tushar Deshpande, Vidvaka, Merappa, Yash Dayal, but they felt Akashdeep was the best, which says that he is ready. He picked up a few wickets and he looks in good bowling rhythm. So I hope he continues that farm into the test match as well. And the fact that he plays for RCB, I would like him to do more well to take that confidence into IPL as well.
What can we expect from him if he does play?
He's somebody who has a good outswinger. That's his main weapon. He bowls around mid 130s. And the fact that he has a heavy ball is what they call it, because he hits the length hard. He's not somebody who comes and releases it. He hits the length hard, and he can be a handful if there is a bit of swing.
The final day of the Rajkot test was a remarkable story, actually, of Ravichandran Ashwin returning to the game after initially pulling out because of a family emergency. And it was almost overshadowed by the way that India won and England lost. You knew, Dinesh, you seemed to know before anyone that he was coming back. And he did come back. He was on the field after tea on that Sunday. And he's here again in Ranchi after what must have been a really, an emotional time for him.
Yeah, it was. One of his family members obviously didn't feel well. I think he had to get through that. It was a tough couple of days, a very tough 48 hours. And I did think his wife put up a nice emotional post about how things panned out in those 48 hours, going from 500 to 501. Of all the wickets that he's picked, I think that journey was probably the toughest in terms of how grueling it was, going back to Chennai and being there and making sure he came back before the test match ended. Also shows his passion for the game. Just the fact that he was able to take a flight and come back when things got better shows how keen a cricketer he is. So it was good to see him back. The first thing that tells you is things are okay and back to a certain sense of normalcy in his family, which is the most important thing. And I mean, he didn't get too much of an opportunity to bowl, picked up the one wicket of Tom Hartley. But as I said, he is a key player in this game. Has he been bowling at his best? Definitely not. Has he had better series in India? Definitely, yes. So he is up for, there's not many series that has gone by in India where he's not picked up a fifer. So I'm keen to see him do well in Ranchi. It is not the best bowling venue, but when I see the pitch, I'll get a better idea as to how good it can be. Sometimes it can be really low and slow, and it's not the most, interesting pitches. It can be a pretty dull, boring sort of cricket that it produces. But I'm really keen to see how this test pitch in Ranchi is shaping up.
At the minute, Dinesh, I've seen the pitch and you haven't. And England are getting a little bit energised about it. They feel that it is quite cracked, running all the way down one side. So outside of the right-handers off stump at one end and the left-handers off stump at the other end, they feel there are cracks and plates that might break up. But then on the other half of the pitch, They feel it's almost quite normal and quite green. You've said that sometimes it can be a bit low, sometimes not dull, but doesn't produce the most exciting cricket. What do you think when we talk about the pitch maybe already being cracked and worn?
So when you have black soil pitches, there is a certain amount of grass cover that they give so that it can bind well and stay. Unlike other soil pitches, it tends to crack up a lot. So they need the grass to just hold and bind the pitch together. This one, as you say, the cracks on the right side, and as the test matches go, I can promise you it will further, get bigger and make it slightly harder for batting. But so far in all the domestic matches that have happened in the same ground, it's been low, slow pitches, slightly high scoring at times. So I'm very keen to see what this crack on the right side, which is going to trouble the right-handers, do against the likes of Ashwin and Kuldeep. So that is going to be the interesting bit. The other part, if it has a bit of grass and it looks nice, won't be something that will really be interesting because of the lack of bounce in this venue.
And we're in Dhoni country, aren't we, Dinesh, here in Ranchi?
Yes.
Can't move in Ranchi without mentions of the great man.
Oh, yes. He's someone who's a very integral part of that state. In many ways, you can see he's one of the reasons why people know this state so well, Jharkhand, the state, and Ranchi, the capital, because of one man, MS Dhoni, who's been the flag bearer and torch bearer for that city for some time now, lives in the highway, has a massive house, has a separate building for all his cars and bikes, and he leads a very quiet life, very different to a lot of the other cricketers from India. So as we speak, I think he might not be around because he's joining the CSK team and starting to practice for the IPL just like me. But he is a man who is very well respected in that part of the world, in most parts of the world, but more so the city he comes from.
And just finally, Dinesh, now India have got that 2-1 lead, they're going to take some stopping, aren't they?
I think so. At this point of time, as you look at it, England have to do something really special. The first thing that they need to do is put some big runs on the board. The fact that they haven't batted as well as they can is putting more pressure on the spinners. I think, to be very honest, as I look at how England have bowled so far, it has been very, very acceptable. I think Jimmy Anderson has bowled well in certain spells in Vizag. Mark Wood wasn't bad at all in Rajkot. Tom Hartley has been the find of the tour so far. So they've had a lot of positivity when it comes to bowling. I think Stokes has got the best out of them. Can't say the same about batting. There are some big names there who haven't really lived up to the kind of scores that they have put up in the recent past. So if the batting comes good, they'll put a lot of pressure on India. But if they don't bat well, then I think India will be cruising to another Test series win in their home conditions.
And what happens during the test, Dinesh? Does the gym work get paused, or do you have to keep working hard even when you're juggling your media commitments?
I have to put in a little bit of gym work. As much as I hate it, I have to do it if I want to play the sport. But yes, it is. It's challenging, but you got to do it.
Tell you what, you bring your bat to Ranchi and I'll bowl at you in the nets, because that'll be the perfect preparation for the IPL.
Stefan, I thought you were a wicket keeper. Oh my God.
I am, but my bowling will be fine. Don't you worry.
All right, I shall definitely take you up on that.
Dinesh Karthik doesn't know how lucky he would be to face my bowling. Vish, it's funny how these things turn. India looked to have all the problems at the start of the series. Now it looks like it's going to take some stopping to prevent them from winning or extending that 12-year unbeaten home record in home test series.
Yeah, massively so. Yeah, you think they made 4 changes in the last test, and they looked as dominant as they have done in that period. Yeah, it's even just the luxury of resting Siraj earlier on in this series, him coming back
bowled beautifully
last week and bowled beautifully, and now he'll be the main seamer here, regardless of like how they match up as well with their balance of attack. So it's been fascinating in that regard for the reasons you stated at the start just then, but also just the fact that both teams seem to be operating independent of each other. You come on previous tours and there's a lot of niggle, and there has been a little bit on this tour, and there might be a lot more now that Ollie Robinson's coming in to play here. He does love being the antagoniser.
I love it. I'll be very excited to see him bowl to R. Ashwin and the other way around.
Yeah, definitely. And he's also someone like Rohit. He's the kind of person who, to get himself into a game will have a word, and we've seen that with Jimmy, with Jadeja as well already, and obviously those two have history, but yeah, it's fascinating. I think we all want the fifth decider, don't we? We all want that. And I think as genial as it has been for the start, I think England will certainly unleash a bit of mongrel over the next, 3 days, is it?
Well, it remains to be seen. The thing that I will take from this tour, maybe in a few years to come, is seeing an India team in transition. So we have had, for as long as people older than me can remember. So you go back one generation, or relatively recently, it's been Kohli, Pujara, Rahane, and this is the first series I think since 2011 that at least one of those guys hasn't played. And before those three, it was Sehwag, Dravid, Tendulkar, Ganguly, Laxman, a combination of those players. So we're talking about 20 or 30 years. Before then, Azharuddin. Now, it seems to be Jaiswal, Shubman Gill, Sarfaraz Khan. I feel like I'm seeing the advent of a new Indian batting lineup that could be in place for a long time to come. Yeah,
it's quite cool. It's almost like we're further down the line. We'll be able to say that we were there when they came in and played so brilliantly as well. Yeah, it was funny, wasn't it, seeing Cheteshwar Pujara netting while the game was going on in Rajkot, because it's a bit like the ghost of Christmas past, wasn't it? But yeah, I mean, that's the exciting thing about being here, and one of the benefits of touring generally is that you get teams at different times, don't you? And it's rare that you come across like Behemoth in India, where they just have this cycle of players, and they're cool players as well. Jaiswal's really cool, isn't he? Like, just all these IPL superstars just coming in, starting young there and coming in here and really puffing their chest out and just bringing a new flavour to the whole thing. You think they're all... The great thing about Indian cricket is you can see the strands running through all the different players. You talk about all those great players, and they have replacements for, who do things in their own way, but they're all kind of bound by, I suppose, this legacy, this heritage. And, like Jaiswal, I don't know if he grew up watching Sehwag, but that's immediately who we might think of when he, Tom Hartley comes on to bowl his first ball and he gets chin for six over his head. Like, yeah, it's an incredible and incredibly interesting time in Indian cricket, not least with the direction of travel with the global game as well. Yeah, there's no question that the standout and breakout star of the series has been 22-year-old opener Yashasvi Jaiswal. 2 double hundreds already, an average of 109, 22 sixes, a record for any test series ever. And there's still 2 matches of this series to go. His journey to the top has been a remarkable one, as he explained to the BBC's Archie Kalyana.
I haven't spent a lot of time with my family because when I was kid, I went to club and they used to I went to academy and they used to tell me that if you will be here, you will spoil your career, you won't achieve anything. And my neighbors, they used to say, stop cricket, do studies and stuff like that. But my family and me, I was thinking, no, I want to do it. Then I had an uncle in Mumbai. Then he's my father's really close friend, and he says, okay, bring him here, maybe we can do something and he can achieve his goals. Then every day I used to tell my mom, no, I want to go, and I want to have cricket in Mumbai. And yeah, that's how it started. And someday, like, my father took me over and I went to Mumbai, and yeah, I tried to staying there, but it wasn't easy because we were not really good financially. My father was like, he's a farmer, and my mother, she was a teacher, and we had 4 kids and everyone needs to be taken care. And if I'm living in Mumbai, it may cost so much. Then I used to work there, of course, selling pani puri and working on a dairy shop, and that's how I started my small journey from there. Then I got I got an admission in Anjuman. I used to play for school, and I was working, and I was staying in the tent, which is in Azad Maidan, and I was like, it's where the who makes the wickets, like the Mani and Gardiner, of course. Then I used to stay with them, and I had a dream that yes, I can do this, and I always believe in myself and I trust myself that whenever I will go and play, I make sure that I'm giving everything and I'll play well and I will be happy when I do that.
What are your vague memories? What was the lowest point for you when you were staying in that tent?
Of course, it's not easy to stay in the tent as a sportsman. Like the first thing is really bad. It's mosquitoes and you don't have a really good water. And third thing, it's toilet. It's really, really hard because when I was staying there, of course, like if the rain is really high in Mumbai, in Azad Maidan, there is water everywhere. Like I remember one day, I was sick. I was not really well. I had some fever stuff and I wanted to go to a washroom. And I tried my best running into the water to reach the toilet, but I couldn't, and I went down there, and it was one of the lowest memory which I have. Like, and I look at the sky and says, seriously God, I'm going to do this and I will do something good in cricket. That day I decided I'm not going to give up. I will never give up. I will try my best all the time, every day. In my practice, be disciplined, focus on my career and what I want to do.
We're really proud of you, Yashasvi. Honestly, that's what you've been through and what you've achieved now. Come on.
I think it's just the start. I need to. Now this is time where I can push myself more because I know that I'm going to compete with one of the best in the world. Then I'm thinking that how much more I need to put in cricket, because cricket has given me everything and I respect this game a lot and it's really close to my heart, and all the time I know I can't repay this, but I'm so blessed and I'm so happy that what game I love, and I'm able to go and express myself and show myself to so many people that anybody can do it if you really want it.
That was Yashasvi Jaiswal talking to Archie Kalyana. And before we go, Vish, it's time to check in with the TMS scorer Phil Long, a man who you know very well. He's been making his way across India to watch all of these matches, trains, buses, taxis. He will always find a way, and he's found his way to Ranchi.
So it's the day after England's capitulation here in Rajkot, and I'm making my way up to Rajkot railway station now for what is it in the end? 3 trains, 2 nights, 3-day journey to the 4th test in Ranchi. Journey of about another 2,000 kilometres. Those 3 trains will take me first to Ahmedabad, quick change there for the overnight train to Delhi, and from Delhi, and after a day in Delhi, another overnight train to Ranchi, where hopefully we'll arrive about 9 o'clock in the morning the day before the test starts. I say hopefully because Indian trains, as we know, have a bit of a reputation for running late. I'm slightly sweating on that 3-hour connection in Ahmedabad. Anyway, fingers crossed, I'm sure we'll get there one way or the other. So I've arrived at Rajkot station, just waiting for the 11:20 to Ahmedabad, the first train of my journey to Ranchi. Quite amusing yesterday on the day off that we had in Rajkot. A lot of the auto rickshaw drivers seemed to find their voice, either shouting India as they drove by, or more amusingly asking me if I wanted a lift up to the stadium, knowing full well the game was done and dusted. So the train from Rajkot to Ahmedabad in the end was bang on time. I'm now stood on Ahmedabad station. The sun's just setting. Stood in front of the 2 minarets that stand by Ahmedabad station. The shaking minarets. Supposedly they will survive any earthquakes in the past and hopefully in the future.
Namaste. May I have your attention, please? The train is about to reach New Delhi station.
It's just gone 7:30 and we've pulled into a rather misty and a little bit chilly New Delhi railway station. Got about 7 hours in Delhi before Get the 4 o'clock Rajdhani Express to Ranchi. Quite a good overnight sleep on that train. Was well fed. Good night's sleep. I'm ready to explore Delhi for the day. Well, it's just before 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Wednesday. I'm at New Delhi railway station. I've had a wander around Delhi during the day. 5 to 4, my train to Ranchi is about to leave. So an overnight sleeper, and all things, should they go according to plan, and that's often a big if in India on the railways, we should arrive in Ranchi at about 8:30 tomorrow morning. It's Thursday morning, 10:30, and we've rolled into Ranchi Junction about 2 hours late in the end. Apparently we got diverted onto a different line sometime overnight, not sure why, so when we woke up this morning we were running about 2 hours late. Did give us great opportunity to take a look at the Jharkhand scenery, which was pretty spectacular as we came into Ranchi this morning. Right, now to find a hotel and, as ever, pick up those match tickets. Now I've tracked down a bus stop that will hopefully take me up to the JCA Stadium to collect my tickets for the 4th test. Now, unlike the first 3 tests and the 5th test in Dharamshala, season tickets covering the whole test aren't available. Tickets are only available by the day. Therefore, there's been increased interest from a lot of England supporters in what Ben Stokes and the England setup have had to say about this wicket and how long the test might last. Now, I've gone for tickets for the first 3 days. Have I read those pre-match predictions right? We'll find out in the coming days. But as I just look to my right now, there's a very, very large black cloud. I just wonder if that might have an influence on the next few days here in Ranchi.